Okay. Sam, hopefully they will make it. Ba, 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 da, da.
Okay, we're live, Yvette.
Okay. All right, you ready?
Yep, you're all good to start.
Okay. All right, so we are going to start with, well, first, welcome to the We the World Freedom Film Fest. And we are really excited to have at least the first few filmmakers with us right now. And so we're going to start with Delita's film. Delita, would you introduce it? Do you mind?
Yeah, so I filmed a short 7-minute film called Fenjan on 16 millimeter. It's a visual essay film with voiceover narration in Arabic. And it centers around the story of a young girl during the Lebanese Civil War that lasted from 1975 to 1990. And it's composed of like scenes from her life as she experiences this horrific wartime experience.
Um, okay, this is Randy. He's asking me, okay. So Randy's at a family event and he's asking me to let him know when we're about to start. Delita, about how long is your film? Do you remember the exact runtime?
I think it's 6 minutes, 30 seconds or around there. It's close to 7.
Okay. Well, before we see it, I just wanted to talk a little bit about why you won. Well, we talked a little bit about the structure. I really like the way that you structure the narrative. I really love the way that you pull those stories together to create one story. I thought that that was really just really well done. I thought the cinematography was good. I thought the lighting really matched the mood for the story you were telling. It was a compelling story. I'm sorry I'm saying so much. It was a compelling story. It also spoke to, I felt like, in terms of the mission, why we wanted to have this. It really spoke to why we want peace. You know, why are we why looking at the consequences of not having it. I thought like that was an unexpected sort of perspective to come from and looking at that, you know, like why we want peace, and from this really personal, intimate sort of you really take us along somebody's life. It's a really intimate story. And I think sharing those scars, because that's not something that we often really think about, is like what it's like to live a life after you've survived. I felt like that was really interesting. And then also the notion of absence of war isn't necessarily um, a good definition of peace, because although they leave the war, their lives aren't exactly inside. They're not don't have internal peace exactly. It's like the war is carried with them. So I feel like that was a really important thing that you showed. So,
Thank you.
um, do you
Yeah,
want to say comments on that?
yeah, I think it's clear, like, if you see Lebanon today, like not just like with recent events, the horrible ammunition that went off just a few months ago, but just in general, just if you look at Beirut, for example, the capital, you can see there's so many pieces of it that are still affected by this war that happened, 30 years ago. So it's definitely, I think it is this ongoing thing where it's like, yes, we're talking about something that happened in the past, but there wasn't any path to healing for the country. And so everything is still in turmoil, even though there isn't, like, we're having a war right now, like this is what's happening. There still isn't peace in that sense. It's still marred by the effects of it. And for the diaspora, the people who had to leave and who had to permanently relocate, they're always going to feel the sense of not belonging to their new location and feeling heartache for their old home. And then for their children, like myself, in my own personal experience, you always feel as if you half belong to America and you half belong to this mythical country that you've never been to because it was never safe enough to go to. So it's generational as well, and it's like this traumatic memory that's passed on throughout, not only the survivors, but their children and their children and throughout the diaspora. So I thought thank you very much for all you said about it. That makes me very happy. And I think you summed it up really well as well, what I was trying to do with it.
Oh, thank you. Brielle, you want to roll that for us?
Yep, I'll set it up now.
Okay, awesome.
يوم من الأيام كنا قاعدين مع أصحابنا عم نحكي وعم نتسلى، قاعدين على الطاولة عم نحكي وعم نتسلى وعم نفكر شو رح نعمل. فجأة رفيقتي طلعت على فنجاني قالت لي في كتير اشياء عم ببين بفنجانك مش طبيعية، خليني بسرلك شي نهار انت بدك تسافري. فكرت انها مجنونة، بس بعد سنة شفت حالي عالباخرة مسافرة تاركة كل شي حوالي، بيتي وصحابي. الحرب الأهلية بلشت وبلش الدمار مع الحرب. كنت مجبورة أترك كل شي، حياتي وأهلي وأصحابي، لمستقبل ما بعرف. وعدت حالي إنه لازم أرجع شي نهار. الحرب الأهلية كتير بشعة، كتير بخوف، إحساس غريب، ما بتعرفي شو رح يصير بكرة، بدك توعي ولا بدك تكوني ميتة، ما بتعرفي شو جايكي بكرة. كنا نقعد بنص البناية وفكرنا إنه إذا قعدنا بنص البناية رح يكون أأمن لإلنا. القليلة كنا منخلي صباتنا بأجرنا تا إذا بلش الحرب كنا نهرب بسرعة، ما نفتش على صباتنا وينه. بالحرب كل شي بيتغير، ما بضل ريحة أبدا، دايما بتكوني على أعصابك. ما فيك تتصوري قديش الأكل مهم. إذا عندك أكل قليل بتفكري إنه إذا أكلتي هلا شو بدك تاكلي بكرة، بتخليك تفكري إذا بدك تموتي من الجوع ولا من القناص. وهلا صار عندي عادة دايما بشتري أكل كتير حماية، بفكر إذا صار شي على القليل. الحرب ما بيفرق. شهر بتذكر إنه الطقس كان كتير حلو بس كتير كان شوب. أمير رفيقه لخيي وتزوج بهيدا النهار اللي كان كتير شوب، مبين عليه إنه طاير من الفرح. وكان قاعد على البلكون وصافن هيك وعم يحلم بمرته إنه قديش هي حلوة ومبسوطة وقديش حياته راح يصير مبسوط. وعصفورنا حسون كان دايما معه عم بيغني معه، ونحن بالبيت كنا جوا عم نحضر أكل وفواكه. كان كتير قليل إنه واحد يتزوج بالحرب. فجأة سمعنا صوت قوي انفجار هائل كأنه هز البناية كلها. ركلت دغري على الصالون وقلبي عم يدق. بس كان فات الأوان. شي زي الانفجار اجى على قلبه دغري وقتله. البلكون كان كله مليان شظايا. الشغلة الأخيرة اللي ما انضربت كان حسون، كان قاعد بالقفص وعم يعمل أصوات غريبة والدخان حواليه. بيي كان يقول إنه المكتوب على الجبين ما في مهرب منه، وأنا كان مصيري إنه أعيش ببلد غريب وآخد معي بس ذكرياتي الحلوة والبشعة. لحديت هلأ دايما بتطلع على الفنجان تشوف شو رح يكون مستقبلي، وإذا شي يوم من الأيام بدي أرجع على بلدي لبنان.
Yay. Okay, so that's our first place film. Um, excuse me, Finjan. Delita, do you want to say anything else? Anything else you want to add before we go to the next one? Randy, you're next.
Hey, hey guys, come here, check this out. On my way.
Delita?
I think just, just try to be aware of these stories. These people are living amongst you, whether you're in sort of a very diverse area or not. Just be aware that there's many different diasporas going on and many different perspectives that people come from. That's it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure. Next is Project 19, Randy. Randy, we were doing sort of talking about the films before we showed them. Is there anything you wanted to say about your film before we got started? Or we? Oh, you're muted. Unmute. Unmute. Hold it. You're muted.
Hi.
There you are. Okay,
no, I
there
don't
you are.
speak for themselves always. We're not there to talk about our films or describe our films before them when they're out in the world. So please just watch it.
All right.
Like that.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Braille, you want to get Project 19 going?
you, grandmas.
Baby, I love you, but I've told you 1,000 times, you know we can't go out.
I hate the coronavirus.
I know, me too. Hey! Bring that back when you're done. Are you okay alone in the basement?
Yes. Is this thing 5G?
I think so.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Zoe. 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 Where are you? I'm coming. Zoe. Where are you? Wait, what do you mean you're at Grandma's house?
It worked.
Are you okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Randy. I know you're at a family event, so we won't keep you. I really
Are you kicking me
appreciate
out?
you. No, no, I thought you wanted to get back. No,
He's
no,
teasing.
absolutely
He's
not.
teasing.
This is my wife. She's the one that was the star, aside from my daughter.
Wonderful performance. Well done.
Well, thank
And
you.
Randy, I just wanted to say, after the conversation that we had had before, watching the film again, it seems like your optimistic side has won out. So I think hope is winning with you despite the cynicism.
Right. It's my daughter's hope
I
funneled through
really,
my cynicism.
well, I think you did a really great job. Like technically, I think you did a great job. Great performances. Are you actually an actor? Is your wife an act? Is she an actor, or does she just do this for you?
I was in my youth, but not for like 20 years.
Ah, good performance. I thought they were great performances, and
Thank
I really, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really just so sweet, and I don't know. I told you, I thought the innocence and sort of like that, seeing the possibilities, and the fact that you captured that. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you guys for doing that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for submitting it. Do you want to like share anything else? You want to anything else, Randy?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. It was this like project was just born from, just creative spark that was, it was like very like unadulterated. Usually, so I work as a director all the time on commercial projects and branding content and things like that, and it's it was really fun to not have anybody telling me what to do, and just making something that was purely just satisfying the creative urge, and it was just kind of like a meditation on a very simple concept, on her desire to want to go see friends. Unfortunately, you know, we're here months later and we're still kind of in relative lockdown, unfortunately. But you know, it was really great to and fun to shoot and fun to work on obsessively. And then you know, I mean, once I was finished with it, it's been really great to see the response from, you know, festivals such as yourself. And you know, I'm looking forward to spending more time working on other projects like this.
Look forward to seeing more. Now, I forgot your wife. What did you say your wife's name was, Randy?
This is Julie.
Julie. What was Randy like as a director?
Well, Randy's directed a number of music videos for me in the past. He's, I trust his vision. He's very creative, and I take good direction. So I just do whatever he says, and I know in the end he'll make something cool.
I'm going to say I'm going to tend to agree with you. I think he did. You guys did a really great job. It's great that you work so well together. That's so awesome.
You have to know who's running the show.
Acquiesce to the director. Yeah, it was really fun to do, and you know, it was definitely really challenging because it's hard on a personal project like this. I really wanted it to be really great, but it was really just, you know, all of us that were in the same quarantine in lockdown. So, you know, it was kind of like a all hands on deck kind of effort, you know, which was fun, you know, but when I look at some of the scenes, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have spent more time, or I wish I had a DP to actually really light, especially the wide scenes. It's easy to get like a decent looking shot on like a close up, but once you get to those wide shots, it's kind of harder to really manage that whole thing. And then to move everything, you know, like all the gear, I had to like move it all around myself and light and, you know, operate the camera. And then what's really hard, the hardest part for me, honestly, which was really, really challenging, was working with my daughter, because I have in my mind what I want her to do. And she's not an actress per se, but, you know, holding the camera in these weird positions is like weird yoga, you know? So I'm like in these excruciating positions, trying to hold them, trying to get her to say a line the way that I need. And her patience is like this much, you know? So it was, some of it was challenging, but mostly challenging in terms of me being able to keep my composure and not yell. But, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like the ends justify the means when it comes to creative projects. And sometimes, you know, they can get crazy.
What kind of tricks did you use to get that performance out of your daughter? Like, what kind of tricks did you discover?
Promising her sweets and toys. I mean, look, I'm really like, controversial or not, like I have very particular feelings about what it means to be a director. And I think that one of the most controversial things about a director, one of these like narratives that I think is a total myth, is the idea that like the director is there to like massage and coax this brilliant performance out of you. To a certain degree it is. But the reality is that, you know, it's all about the talent that you're working with. And thankfully my wife was able to carry the film because she could play all those dramatic parts where she's not that many dramatic parts. I mean, it's a short, but she played enough dramatic, like, you know, she was able to play that kind of like the difficulty of not knowing where her daughter was, like, and that stuff really sold it. For Zoe, most of the time, I really just relied on her, you know, playing around with those toys in the basement, you know, and that's easy for her because it was kind of, she just was able to do that. But getting back to what I was saying before, I think that, you know, most of the director's job is done in the selection of all the little pieces. And one of those is casting. The idea of like working with talent on set with those like amazing behind the scene moments of like, oh, why don't you try pretending like it's a this or that? Or, you know, I think that that's kind of more myth than I think reality. And I think that as filmmakers, we, especially auteurs, we kind of glom onto that because it's very like, there's a sexiness about that particular myth, you know? It's like, oh, I'm coaxing the best out of this person and all that kind of stuff. But the reality, I think, is kind of more, a little bit, you know, just more practical, you know? Sometimes it was just like, Zoe, I just need you to do that again. Say it like this, and you're gonna have a cupcake, you know? Sometimes with Julie too. She likes cupcakes.
I just wanted to go to sleep. I was like, how do you want me to say it so that I can go to sleep?
One of the reasons I wanted to do this festival was I do like looking at things from a technical perspective, and I really appreciated this opportunity to see what a good director does in terms of knowing what to show to tell the story and how to show it effectively. So that was one of the things that I think like you guys did like really really well. So bravo, bravo.
Thank you. Thank you very
Um,
much.
Thank you so much, Randy. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Okay, so I don't think we don't have our third filmmaker here, so we will just go on to one. Are you ready, Brielle? Uh-oh, is Brielle there? Yes, Brielle is here.
Gary Davis was a rising Broadway star. The night he stood in for the ailing Danny Kaye, he brought down the house, getting 13 curtain calls. Then, the world went mad. Families were ripped apart. His brother was killed in action. Gary enlisted, eager to bomb Hitler's war factories. But then he was ordered to bomb a city full of civilians. Horrified at the carnage, he was enraged at the war system. Sure that there must be a better way to run our world, he set off to right the wrongs and prevent World War III. He gave up Broadway and made the whole world his stage. He dared to interrupt the squabbling of nations, to demand that the UN hold worldwide elections of a global Congress to outlaw war and make peace. 20,000 war-weary Europeans rallied with him to demand that the world recognize the rights of humanity.
Pas d'illusions sur les difficultés que nous attendent. Mais nous devons choisir entre les difficultés et les massacres de la guerre. Moi, j'ai choisi.
The very next day, the UN unanimously passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. With that authority, Gary then staged the most audacious performance of all. He declared a government of, by, and for the people of the world. He gave up his United States citizenship to raise his allegiance to the global level. He became the first official world citizen. His new government issued IDs, marriage licenses, and passports. Nations first rejected them and locked Gary up for failing to have national papers. But amazingly, hundreds of thousands began to register as world citizens. Nations around the globe began to stamp the world passports. Thousands of refugees and detainees, incarcerated for years for lack of identity papers, obtained world passports, and for many, freedom. Gary Davis stands for a world most people can only dream about. A world in which humanity is united. A future in which we free ourselves from the scourge of war and oppression. A world in which we are one. The Gary Davis Story.
prayed somebody'd find a way to end our war. Then one day I met Barry Davies and he made my mind sore. My country is the world, he said, and he thrives in that creation. For 60 years he lives as a citizen of no one nation. Feelings inside, so warm, so great. When thoughts happen, be patient, because it's one world, unburdened in space. It's one world to make safe in its place. It's one world, united to free. One flag unfurled for you and for me. Ayo, ayo, ay, world citizen. Woo! Ayo, ayo, ay, world citizen. Woo! Ayo, ayo, how you like it, world citizen?
Okay, well, that was one, and we don't have Arthur with us, but I thought that one was an interesting pick because we frequently use that quote, we can't change problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And I think this is a could spark a very interesting conversation about a different way of thinking about policy decisions at the state and national level if we thought about them in that sort of context of being world citizens. And Brielle, so if anybody had any comment or something to say about that, chime in. And if not, Brielle, we can move on to Sohn, which is our first honorable mention. I'm sorry, just in case I didn't mention it, that one was our third place winner, Randy was our second, and Fajan was our first. And so now we're going to our first honorable mention, Sohn, and that is directed by Calvin Mumm. So whenever you're ready, Brielle.
We were sitting in class. Everything was normal, and then my creative writing teacher, he came in and he said, "You know there's a lockdown going on right now, right?" My heart started racing. I was terrified. I started thinking about escape plans or what I would do if, if somebody started trying to, shoot through the door, would I, if I would block it or if I would, just try to get people out of the way. It really made me realize that nowhere is safe.
On a daily basis, I just wake up, go to school, head to my regular classes. Depending on the day, I might go into work.
I moved into the United States my freshman year of high school. For me personally, I really enjoyed high school. It was a party, to say the least.
Well, my typical high school life, I just have my normal group of friends that I hang out with. Some of them I met this year, some of them are from my childhood.
I travel throughout the high school with a very small group of kids. And it's the same group of kids in basically every single one of my classes.
So I get up probably about 5:45, try to do some homework and stretches before, get to school by probably 7:44 on a good day.
Now, a story of survival that turned into a struggle.
A Millard South senior who found himself just feet from a gunman inside his school.
3 months ago, a gunman armed with an AR-15 rifle opened fire inside the freshman building at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School.
I'd say that gun violence has definitely influenced my high school experience in a negative way, just in the fact that it's definitely caused a lot more paranoia just in day-to-day life.
Emotionally, it's a little bit scarring. The fact that nowadays we have to worry, it's constantly on the back of our mind that someone might come in and have malicious intent and take it out on the rest of us.
Our daily routine is very much like changed from what it used to be, because now it's like if you go off campus for lunch, you have to make sure that you go in the main doors because all the other doors are going to be locked. There's little inconveniences that remind you of the big issue.
The last mass shooting in schools that was really publicly advertised was Sandy Hook, and that was when I was in elementary school, when I didn't have to really process it.
It sort of built sort of two clashing like emotional reactions between like those who sort of compromise and just like settle like, yeah, like gun violence in schools is just like part of reality, you know, and then the others who are just like, you know, very emotionally outspoken and like terrified about it.
So the first thing that I can recall after hearing about Parkland was having my younger sister text me because she was concerned about our younger cousins who live in Florida, and she wasn't sure if they were okay, and she was just really terrified about what was happening. She didn't know what was going on, and that just made me really sad, seeing my 11-year-old sister at the time have to go through and think about gun violence in that way and worry about if her family was okay. After that, I remember just sitting in front of the TV all day and just watching every single news report, every single thing that I saw come on TV about it, because I wanted to know what happened, why it happened, who was involved, and it just was terrifying to me that something like this could still happen. In Parkland, it felt like I was grieving right along with everyone else.
I think I cried almost every day for like a week at least, because I would just start thinking about it, and I would think about if I had known somebody there, or it could have been my school, you know, that kind of stuff.
It was 2 or 3 weeks out after the Parkland shooting. I remember I was sitting in my AP US history class, and someone just sort of like stomped a bag of chips with their foot, and the noise like freaked me out. And so I like dove under my desk. I like really thought that like a gun had just been fired. Gun violence like was like really something that like I was thinking about like really frequently in classes. Like every time I walked in, I was like, oh, like how would I escape, or what could I do to protect my friends if something happened?
It does make me a little bit angry that it is something that we as teenagers have to talk about on a fairly frequent basis, when we should be talking about just normal teenager things, and instead we're having to focus on imminent fear and just perpetration by the media.
The action that schools do take is important. I think it helps, but I wouldn't say that it really ever has changed much.
But what they found out next has many angry tonight. It was a drill.
Many of these kids have been going through drills like this since kindergarten, but their parents have never actually seen one.
When we have a lockdown drill, a lot of times they don't tell the students that it's going to happen because they want it to be more serious, and they want us to take it more seriously rather than if they were to like prepare you for it.
Well, every room is equipped with like this telephone on it. And the telephone would, you know, beep. And what the teachers would do is that they'd close all the blinds, lock the doors, and then students would hide.
But then usually once it's called, the teacher will be like, I just want you all to know that this was like a scheduled lockdown drill. It's not the real thing.
Students would hide not under their desk, but the doors would always be a little bit more out into the room, and there'd be like a little cove where if, let's say, someone looks in through the windows, like the teacher forgot to drop the windows, and they'd see the classroom as empty.
And then the administrators, once everybody's accounted for, will like say, okay, like good job guys, and it'll like go from active shooter and it's red, and then it'll switch to like everything's all right and it'll be green.
Whether or not we have, you know, more security, I think most people kind of think same as me, which would maybe be that's not going to do a lot in the case of an actual school shooting.
I mean, like, it's really sad, but I can't even name the last school shooting that happened. You know, I think 10 years ago, everyone knew about Columbine and Sandy Hook. And in the last 10 years, like, we've just sort of forgotten. We've been like, oh man, another one.
It just kind of became numb. Like, we didn't look at the list of names of people who were killed. We didn't look at the pictures. We didn't read every single article about it. We just said, oh, another one.
Kind of shows the possibility of it happening to me as well. And it's definitely surprising to, like, listening to the stories where they say, you know, it was just a local student or someone that someone's been friends with.
We're just sitting in class during our school day and we hear about a school shooting across the country, but it still affects us because we're like, well, crap, like, we're in school right now. Like, what if that could have happened here instead of over there?
What we unfortunately see is that this fear is also allowing for no change in laws. So we're not trying anything new. We're stuck in this loop, like I said. We know that the results will be the same, and yet we do nothing.
I think that sort of mindset is not just us, but everyone around us, that violence in school, whether it be through bombs or through guns, has become our new normal.
The thing is, they don't experience it, and then they refuse to listen to the people that do.
Government action has really been more of a spotlight on the issue than really making me feel safer. You know, some politicians project ideas such as, like, putting more guns in schools, arming teachers and staff, or, like, you know, putting more police officers. In some ways that alarms me more than it brings me, like, calm.
And then there might be other things such as the clear backpacks or the bulletproof backpacks or metal detectors in the fronts of schools. And I feel like that kind of places the burden on students.
It's, you know, it's not our responsibility. It shouldn't be. You know, it shouldn't be the job of high schoolers to protest gun violence, but it also shouldn't be part of a high schooler's life to have to deal with gun violence.
We're trying to defend our own lives at this point, and it sort of feels like nobody else is doing that for us. So we have to, you know, this is what it's come to. We have to stand up for ourselves. I've tried to imagine, you know, what'll happen 50 years from now. But from what I've seen so far in my lifetime, though it's very short, it doesn't seem like there's going to be much of a change. I'd say it would have to be a very, very drastic, even more drastic than 17 people dying.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know how it's going to play out in the future. Like, will this get worse? You know, with the upcoming generations finally having voting rights, it could definitely change.
I might have a more pessimistic view of this than most. I just don't see much of a hope, almost. It feels like there's not really, it doesn't matter what we do, but it'll never change.
Okay. That was Sown, and that was our first honorable mention. And I guess it's sort of obvious why that one was picked. Important to hear those voices again speaking to the issue of peace and what the absence of that means for survivors and the people who have to live with that, and what it is to have to live with that, I guess, basically PTSD. Um, and also, I thought the cynicism and I hate to say hopelessness, but the sort of hopelessness that they were expressing, I felt like needs to, on the one hand, be witnessed, but also hopefully might be a bit of an activation. You know, help because I that just sort of broke my heart. That very much broke my heart. That sort of hopelessness. Did anybody have any comments? Anything to say on that one?
I would agree with you. I think I mean, first of all, the film is very well produced. I love this kind of idea of just talking about an event through the voices of people that were there. And what really struck me was how much older everybody sounded than they were. Like, it's kind of like these are actually high school students, but you know, there is that comes from that sense of cynicism that you were talking about, and the way that they're reflecting on this, and that sense of hopelessness kind of ages a person. But I like how you're describing it as an activation, because I think that's the only way we can cope, is if we look at terrible events and we decide to try to fight to make, you know, things better for
Right.
everyone.
And I really love like they emphasized the whole that they were they were participating in this project because they felt that they had to fight for their own lives, that they can't trust the adults, politicians, the gun manufacturers, you know, gun lobbyists, I guess, really more than manufacturers, that those people who should be in that role, that to me is just heartbreaking. And I hope that that will touch people and be something that would motivate change and more support for reform, and looking at not just sort of dealing with this crisis from a symptom perspective, but kind of going back again to the root cause, trying to go, because that's always a less expensive alternative, pretty much with most problems. So there's one reason to look there. So anyway, we don't have that filmmaker with us, but that was a very important film, and happy to include it and show it. And our next one is Breathe, and that is directed by Justin Bailey. Oh, and this sort of builds on that whole thing of PTSD. So I guess that's sort of a theme going on here.
Here we go again. Another sleepless night. Another tired day at work tomorrow. Another day. Another migraine. Fuck my life. Why can't I just fall asleep?
Can you get out of the car, please, sir?
Is the front door locked? Is the kitchen window closed? Did I lock the back gate when I put the bins out? If they want me, they can get me. Am I just a sitting insomniac duck? Maybe it's my preference to lay here and relive all the mistakes I've made in my life before I can retire for the day. Or maybe I like the thoughts of being overly prepared for every eventuality that may or may not occur tomorrow. For fuck's sake. Look at her. Why does she fall asleep with such ease? Maybe I missed the day the teachers taught us how to switch off and fall asleep. She's got no issues. Nothing crazy has happened in her life. She doesn't know what I've been through.
Open the door!
Breathe. That's what they say. Just focus on the breath entering and leaving your lungs. Clear your mind of all thoughts. That's what they say. But they haven't been through what I've been through.
How have you been? Been getting any sleep lately? Okay, at this stage, I don't want to give you any sleeping pills because people do get addicted to them. So what I want you to do is try a really simple form of meditation. When you're going to bed at night, just focus on your breath. Just breathe. Focus on the air coming into your lungs. Focus on the air going out of your lungs. Don't let any thoughts in your head. Just breathe. That's it.
Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I need to work on myself. Maybe my temper is too short. Maybe people have done me wrong. Maybe I wasn't raised right. Breathe. Just stop these negative thoughts and clear your mind. You're fine. You're in no immediate danger, so it's simply pointless worrying about things that only exist in the past or the future. I need to live in the present.
Don't make this hard on yourself.
But my present is haunted.
Looking at your nighttime schedule, and I noticed there's 10 minutes of other things here. What exactly is other things?
Normally me checking my emails or watching or viewing things online, looking into things that I'm concerned about, researching things that worry me slightly.
I've been looking through your notes, and it looks to me like you're suffering from a really advanced form of anxiety. It's where you suffer so intensely over potential occurrences that it's as if you've already suffered from the things you fear the most.
But police brutality is a problem for people everywhere.
But is it for you?
Potentially.
How about factually? You're working yourself up over an event that hasn't even happened.
But it's a real threat.
Okay, let's just try this exercise. Lay back for me. If you can just remember to breathe, it will help you when you start to feel tense.
Breathe.
And get out of the car, please, sir.
Okay, so that was Breathe, and I just really like the concept of exploring coping mechanisms of PTSD and some of the resistance and the challenges around like adapting new and maybe better coping behaviors. Okay, so the next one is Wow, Win Without War, and this sort of builds on this is again Gary Davis, and I think that he sort of gave voice to there you are, Arthur. Gave voice to a bit of the idealism and the inspiration behind the festival. And that was essentially why I wanted to include it. Arthur, do you have anything you'd want to say about it before we see Wow? Ups, you're muted.
Yes.
There you are.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and I see young people, struggling with so many problems today. And one of the reasons why Gary Davis's story grabbed me so much was because he did find, in the midst of the most terrible things, in the midst of having felt the guilt over, bombing a city full of civilians and the horror of facing looming nuclear war, that he was able to find an incredible power by going, first of all, going within, and then realizing the incredible power we have when we break out of these boxes called nation states and take our rightful place as citizens of the world. So I'm hoping that this short will inspire young people to see that there are solutions. So, sorry for the background traffic there, that there are solutions. And will join us in perhaps seeing the full movie, and let's talk about it after the film. So yes, please do go ahead with the film, and then let's talk a little bit more about it after that.
Okay, Brielle?
I'm Gary Davis, and I made it to age 90. Oh. And as a citizen of no nation, only the world. Tom Paine wrote, "My country is the world." Well, think about it. If our country is the world, suddenly no more wars. Wow. I named my book that because if our country is the world, then suddenly the seemingly impossible problems like saving our planet, environment, become manageable. Does world government scare you? Well, it does me too. If it's the same old forces of power and money controlling our lives from behind closed doors. But what if we, the people, institute our own government, truly of, by, and for the people of the world? After all, we are the sovereigns, the ones who create governments and give them power. So what if instead of just voting for those politicians, we asked, how can we, as sovereign world citizens, govern our world? Visionary, you bet, but doesn't every advance start with imagination? When we catch the vision of a people-powered planet, then, in this era of instant communication, we'll be able to evolve the tools and the platforms we need to bring the highest and best wisdom of each individual to the task of governing planet Earth. Claim your power, and let's join together to build a world in which each of us can say, my country is the world.
Well, so now that film is just a little short clip, but we have a full length, a feature documentary called "The World Is My Country" about Gary's amazing story. And I would be very interested in hearing what young people think of his idea. I mean, you know, think about this. If the Declaration of Independence says it is the right of the people to institute new government, and if every constitution in the world says that, the Universal Declaration of Independence, then who do they mean when they say we the people? Is it old guys in gray wigs, or do we the people actually have the right to create governance? And the great thing that Gary discovered is that at the global level, there is no global government. There's no world government. The UN doesn't claim to be a government. You'll see in our movie that the incredible place when Gary actually interrupted a session of the UN to call on the leaders of the world to create a way that we the people could elect representatives around the world. And Eleanor Roosevelt responded, you know, how much better it would be if Gary and his friends would do it. I mean, the UN isn't set up to do that. It's set up to be a place for nations to let off steam. And we've seen that in 60 years, it hasn't been able to put an end to the nuclear threat, to end the scourge of war. So how do we actually end the scourge of war and oppression and the threats to the very ecocide and survival of our planet? And so what do young people think about the idea of we the people stepping up to the plate and using these new technologies of the phone, cell phones and everything we have to create a new kind of interactive governance, not one that pits one side against the other, voting against each other, but instead, how do each of us together collaboratively come to a synergy in small groups like these Zooms and other Zooms, and people across political boundaries, people on opposite sides of political issues, coming together using new tools for interaction to actually come up with what is the will of the people on the global basis. What do young people think of such an idea? Is that something that you can wrap your head around? Is it attractive? Does it make you want to be a part of something like that?
I'm not sure. I don't know if you're. I assume since you said young people, you're asking Delita.
Okay. What do you think?
I'd say it's an attractive sentiment. Like, I think at our core, we all want the same thing. Like, we're all human, right? So, I mean, I'd love to see a way in which that could work. And I live next to a border myself. I'm right on the edge of Mexico. So, issues with borders and issues with this concept of, you know, one piece of land belonging to this nation, one piece of land belonging to that nation, all the issues that happen at this meeting place is something I've spent a long time thinking about and hearing stories about myself. And yeah, I think I'm on board with what you're saying, essentially.
Well, I'm very intrigued that you said that about the border, because, you know, there was a powerful film called Immigration Nation, about just the incredible invasion of rights that happens because we've locked ourselves in these boxes called nation states. And, you know, on this planet of ours, I mean, you know, there you have that border with Mexico, but, you know, birds are flying over, animals are flying over. It's only we, the people, who invented a system where we're locked in these boxes. And, you know, somehow, Gary, you know, when you see our full movie, you'll see that he helped inspire the leaders who founded the European Union, which brought down those borders. And, you know, here in Europe, they fought 2 world wars. Germany and France hated each other. All these countries hate each other. They'd all fought wars. They couldn't believe they could ever live under the same roof. And yet, since the European Union was formed, in those 70 years, no European nation has fought a war with another European nation. Well, sure, they fought wars with, you know, they had wars with other outside with, you know, all the other places in Africa and so on, because we don't have world law. But inside, when we have law, they take it to court. Now, as Gary says, when you see our full film, what about civil wars? Yes, there have been civil wars, and that's where you have 2 sovereignties, 2 nations, two sovereignties in one. But if we can all come together in some kind of a collaborative form of bringing our highest and best wisdom to the top, I think, you know, companies are going to go flock to want to join us because we're their market. You know, nations are going to join us because they don't know how to fix these problems. I think there's a lot of power to it. So I do hope you'll come to theworldismycountry.com and take a look at the full. We have actually a bridged version we put up free right now called One. It's called We Are One. And once you watch that, you could also, if you decide you want to go see the full movie, that's 83 minutes, that's possible too. So and each week we have these People Powered Planet podcasts every Wednesday. If you go to theworldismycountry.com/club, we're having interactive conversations with people talking about how do we actually do that? How do we create the mechanism? How can you have an app in your phone, a smart app where you're actually helping the government and make decisions for, you know, doing things like outlawing the ecocide, destroying the very environment we live on, or outlawing war, which is, you know, in a nuclear age, eventually suicidal for all of us. How do we actually outlaw those things? So I'd love to hear questions, comments, and have you join us in this adventure of exploring how do we build the world we choose.
Awesome. One of the reasons I was intrigued by this was I remember back in the early days of the internet and like the early 2000s, well, more the early 2000s and late 1990s, but certainly there was a lot of hope around. Before we had the term social media, it was just ICT, information communication technology. And there was such idealism that sort of grew from the peer-to-peer movement. And so when I think about things like this, the concept you're talking about, we were talking about, you know, bridging the digital divide and this new understanding of community that was not defined by geography, and the rise of communities of practice. And so I think all of those sort of, I'm going to call them older movements, I think maybe provide some insight into like infrastructure for something like what you're talking about, particularly peer-to-peer networks and that approach to production and management. And I think of this project Sensorica, which is sort of is primarily out of Canada, but I think that what they have managed to do with open source technology and open source solutions for community, not so much, it's not to the exclusion of institutions, but it's really like a model for partnering with communities, individuals, and empowering individuals and within the community, and creating a structure for, I guess, for collaboration with existing institutions. And so I think that for something like this to work, it has to kind of like calm the fears of people that would be afraid that you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But anyway, I think that those earlier endeavors might be something to look at, to build on, in terms of figuring out like an infrastructure and sort of a peer-to-peer governance model that's not like hierarchical, you know, to explore in that same sort of context. So.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Yvette. That's exactly what Gary got excited about before he did. He has passed away by now, but he was so excited about the idea of peer-to-peer and us connecting with each other at that local level and interactively evolving things. He worked with Buckminster Fuller disciple to devise a system he called Syntegrity, which is, you know, synergy means, you know, if you have one side versus another, that representative democracy, really one side wins, one side loses. It's a race to the bottom. But synergy is, how do we come together and create certain new kinds of dialogue and interactions that bring out the beautiful things that, like Dalida said about, you know, people's capability inside and the common things that we all want, and how do we bring those together into all of us contributing what is our highest and best wisdom about how to fix things in the world and make things better, have it a race to the top for all of us of unity, rather than a race to the bottom of division and hatred and death. So I love what you said, Yvette. Let's work on it together. Come to our people powered planet. Let's help devise those peer-to-peer systems that can connect us together in our diversity, in celebrating our diversity and our oneness at the same time.
Okay, we'll email about that. And I'll definitely send you a link to Sensorica, because I do think that's something that I really would be interested, because they have some very interesting technology projects to address things from, you know, community gardening, you know, and using hydroponics, you know, and better monitoring the soil and all that sort of thing. But also from a business perspective, the idea of, instead of pursuing a patent for their inventions, they chose to make them open source. And there's a Fab Lab type, there's an open lab type component of that project. And anyway, I won't get all into Sensorica, but obviously I'm a fan. I love what Tibby's doing.
Good for you. Good for you.
Okay. So let's see. Our last one. I think this is our last one. I think it's going to be dialogue. Yes, it is. Okay. So we're going to wrap this up with dialogue. And Souvik, I don't know if you're still there. If you want to say a little something before we get started. We had a really great conversation about it before everybody was here. So shame on me. Oh, there you are. Okay, so you're unmuted. Are you unmuted?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. My net connection is like going down, so I just shut the
Okay. Oh, we don't get to see your happy smiling face. Okay, that's okay. We have your voice in your work. We'll make that work. Okay, so we talked a little bit about dialogue and what I loved about it, which was I felt that you really conveyed this sense of rhythm. And I love the pacing in terms of how you edited it also, but the sense of rhythm that you really convey, and it's almost like you can smell the curry and you really feel like you're moving us through. It really feels like a quick journey through Mumbai. And you talked a little bit about how you see Mumbai and wanting to convey that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So in one sentence, if I just want to put it, it's just a music trip in Mumbai. And I think I'll leave it at that, and then we can maybe resume and like post the film, we could just have a talk. Is that fine?
Yeah, you definitely have to tell us about the soundtrack on the other side.
Yeah,
how
sure,
about that?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, go ahead, Brielle.
क्या बोलने का डायलॉग यार, डायलॉग बोल बोल के तो मैं खुद ही एक डायलॉग हो गया।
Mumbai Central. Mumbai Central.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. So, Civic, share a little bit about what you shared earlier about the soundtrack, how you created that soundtrack.
Hi. Yeah, so whatever you heard so far in this track, everything was like sampled out of raw sounds that came out of the tools that these workers use. So basically, if a barber is like snapping on his scissors and all, that's the sound that has been sampled. And then we have actually laid out a track out of that. Uh, thanks, John. Thanks. So whatever these things are there, like the sounds of the bubbles and everything, those things have again been put into a melody, and we have put in the lyrics on top of it, and the lyrics are again from the verbal spat that these guys have, the workers have on the street. So the entire conversation that is happening on this is actually a fight between two street vendors, and they are like literally, bargaining on a price of certain garlands that they are selling. So yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah, I'll check that out. Thanks. Yeah, so basically it's just all raw, whatever there is. We have tried to minimize on using MIDI and other processed sounds. There are processed sounds, but we have tried to minimalize that. And whatever visuals you see is pretty much to maintain that kind of a fluidity, whatever we had with respect to the sound. Of course, we went out for 2 sound walks before we could actually arrive on the track. So we were trying to make sense out of, I would say, about 6 to 8 hours of just rambling that we captured of the street vendors and stuff. And the idea was very clear from the beginning that this kind of a storyline has to be there. And my attempt was to bring that economic injustice that is there with the street workers, because these street workers usually they migrate from their home states and they move into this big city called Mumbai, which is like the financial hub of the country. And then they do not really work under the best of the best circumstances. They have loads of issues. But whenever you see them on the streets, they have a different vibe to them. They're very colorful. They're very engrossed into their work. They're very happy when you see their faces, and they always have this spat and always have this conversation going on along, which is very interesting. I mean, they have this Bollywood references, they have this politics references, then they speak about cricket and stuff like that. So yeah, that spirit was what I was trying to capture pretty much, and I just wanted to keep it real as much as possible. Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about why you chose to frame Mumbai the way that you did? We talked a little bit earlier about sort of the typical way that it's portrayed or represented, and you wanted to do something different.
Right. So yeah, obviously that was one of the reasons. Also, I did not want to just shoot a travelogue because that is where you end up. That is what you end up making, because a lot of people are coming to this city. They're like touring over all of the places, and then they just put on some B-rolls, slap some music onto that, and then put it out. That was not the intention. So if you see a fish talking in my film, it has a meaning to it, because uh, it shows you that oversaturation that is there with so many people talking from all of the sides, and suddenly it's so overwhelming that you actually see a dead animal talking somewhere. So that is how the intention, that is what the intention was, and that is how I have tried to uh,
Yes.
yeah. So I just said that.
Excuse me.
So the intention was to, basically present something which was different, but at the same time it should had a story. And the idea right from the beginning was to show these workers' lives, and not sympathize with them in the traditional sense, rather to celebrate their life in whatever state they are in, because that is what they're doing every day. And I cannot be just going over there and just showing their poverty or whatever, the penury part of it, because they have that spirit that needs to be reflected on screen, is what I felt. And so whatever the graffitis and stuff that you see is part of this Bollywood centric city that we live in, which is Mumbai. Like you see superstars, like 10-storied graffiti on a wall, and then there is this walls which are like completely filled with some random slogans and some random drawings
Like
and stuff like that. But
advertisements and things.
yeah, so every single thing has a meaning, like it has an economic or an socio-political meaning to that. So all of those things sort of intermingles, and I think it requires a second viewing whenever you can. Just go ahead and watch it on Amazon Prime or somewhere is there. Just watch it with the subtitles on, and you would find meanings to the visuals. I know it happens very fast, and it's difficult to fathom over a Zoom this thing, because you draw frames and everything. So you will get to understand that kind of a fluidity that is there to the visuals.
Was this your first experimental piece?
No, I made another experimental stuff which was purely shot on a cell phone. So that was like some 2-3 years back.
Okay, someone's asking a question. Do you have formal film school training in Mumbai?
Yeah, true. I did have that. It's called St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. I did a Xavier Institute of Communications postgraduate diploma in film and TV.
Do you all study? Did everybody study film? Yes. Arthur? Yes.
I studied design.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I studied design with a film emphasis, so kind of both.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Arthur, what were you saying?
I just wanted to say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed very much that concept of sampling from right from people's daily lives. Where is the film available if we wanted to share it with friends or others? And is it available with subtitles? I mean, it's in English, but I have old ears. And you mentioned there's a lot of things you can hear if you watch it twice. And I always find it helps if I have subtitles.
Yeah. So just use your headphones, like a good quality headphone. You will get to hear the sound designing and everything. And just go ahead on Amazon Prime and watch it. It's there. It's called Dialogue, Dialog, Dialogue.
And we will be adding.
Tell us about how sorry, I just wanted to continue the question. Can you just
go ahead?
How did you put it on Amazon Prime? What did you do to get it shown there? And does that bring you any revenue, or how's that working out for you?
So I think it's just been 1 week that I had put it on Amazon. So I'm yet to get some monetary benefits out of it, but I'm getting reviews, nice reviews, and that is what is reflecting on IMDb as well. So I'm getting IMDb reviews as well as Amazon reviews, which is really nice, and that is what really counts for independent filmmakers like us. So that is a good thing. And to answer your first question, how did I get to that? I have tried for different aggregators, distributors, and I clicked with Film Hub. You can just check it up. So they will get you through. But there are a lot of requirements that are there with regards to the poster and stuff. With regards to your video content file, the audio specs are also there to meet. So once you meet all of the guidelines and everything, it takes a lot of time though. You'll get through. That's all.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Arthur.
I just wanted to say real quick that I really enjoyed it. I thought it was awesome. I think you could totally make this a 1 hour or 2 hour like feature film thing. Just totally unique, and I'm like so into this.
Thanks so much. Well done. So I also have an extended version of this thing on Apple Music and stuff, Shazam and all of those streaming platforms. So it's like 3 minutes, not more than that. But you could be in that space for a longer time if you want to.
Ah, okay. That's good. And the other thing I wanted to point out was I thought what an interesting take on economic justice, on that issue. I thought you took a really interesting approach to that. And while I have you guys here, I have a question for all three of you. When we did our frequently asked questions, one of the things that we found was some people were very they thought it was strange that we weren't doing an entry fee and that we weren't. They sort of wanted to know, like, why are you doing this? Like, you're giving out prizes, but you're not charging an entry fee. And so we would point them back towards like the mission statement. But we actually did a whole frequently asked questions to kind of help people understand what the organization was about and how the film festival related to supporting that agenda, that advancing that in terms of like actionable, taking actionable steps. So what made you decide to submit to a film festival like this? And would you do it again?
Well, I actually met somebody who her name was Grace, and she was advertising it. And she was, I guess she used to go to my school, I guess, which is why she was advertising it within my university. But she was like, I see you're connected to this film club. Can you like mention it there? And I was like, yeah, what is this all about? I mean, I just recently finished editing one of my films myself. And she explained it to me, and I was like, this sounds super cool. Like, I had no idea this was a thing. And yeah, the low cost of entry was certainly like surprising. Like at first it was like, really? Like, are you sure there's absolutely no entry fee? But looking back at like the larger organization, it made sense. And I personally appreciated it. I think it allowed, no barriers of entry means more submissions and more people being able to speak their voice. So I thought that was great.
That was exactly my thought. That was what I was hoping. Okay, Souvik, Arthur, which one of you wants to go first?
Okay, Arthur, please go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You go first.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say that I really enjoyed it too, and glad to hear about your film club. Wanted to hear a little more about that, and to invite you, well, both you and Souvik, to email me. You see my email on the screen, arthurkanagas@gmail.com. I'd love to hear more about your club and also more about Mumbai. I did travel to India to Delhi and Lucknow for a conference of Supreme Court justices talking about how we create world law. But I would love to visit Mumbai someday. I'd love to hear from both of you. But yeah, go ahead.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Arthur. Anytime. So I have this one rule for submitting to film festivals. I never pay. I never pay any entry fees. I haven't sent it to like the most celebrated of the celebrated film festivals, and I don't mind doing that. And right now I can say Dialogue had been to over 30 to 40 film festivals, and it had either been a finalist or awarded, or it had been an official selection. And the reason I submitted to your film festival is because with respect to the theme, I found it very relevant to whatever I had made. And the fun part about making something about like Dialogue is that you can just put it into any bracket. If there is a music video segment, you can put it into that. If there is a documentary segment, you can put it into that. Video art, you can put it into that. And then there is an economic justice or this kind of a theme as well, the humanitarian ground as well. So the idea is to show the content to a larger audience, and more than just the filmmaker being glorified or the crew or the concept being glorified. It's also about the people who are being shown, right? The people who are being the stories that are being told. So as long as I'm getting to do that, as long as I'm getting to interact with people like Arthur and Alida and others, it's amazing. And that is what the biggest takeaway is at most of the places. Most film festivals do not even have this kind of a networking facility, and that is what should be the key for any filmmaker who is submitting a film somewhere. Yeah.
Say that last part again, Suvik.
Yeah, I'm saying most film festivals do not have this opportunity of networking that we are doing right now. Yeah, so that is really awesome that you guys are doing. At least we are using the internet to the fullest potential, I would say, and then we are doing something about it, right? We are just sharing thoughts. I just got to know about so many films and so many concepts. I did not know about this concept of the film that Arthur had made. That entire concept was like mesmerizing. So these things are really important. These things do not happen in a lot of other film festivals, which is like very guarded, and they just tell you film is being selected and they're going to show it somewhere and it's gone, it's done. So so this was really interesting.
Awesome. Okay, well, I want to know if
I've loved We for years. I just add that I've loved We for years. I love what you're doing in so many ways, and have met Rick and have really seen that you're doing important work for the planet. So yes, of course, I would I would submit to anything that you had where we could collaborate and help build a better world together.
Awesome. In addition to your awards and certificates, would it be helpful to you guys if we shared some of the comments, or if at least you gave me my comments that you could use for your reviews, or tell me where you want them posted? I'd be happy to do that for you. And I'd invite you guys to give us some feedback, and that we could use to promote this next year. It'd be great if we could get a statement from you that we could about your experience that we can use to promote it next year. And definitely, I want to invite you to submit again when we do this in 2021. And thank you so much for making this so much fun, making our first festival, a success, and convincing me that I could be a short film festival director.
You did it. I thought this was great. And thank you for reading this, and I really enjoyed it.
Arthur, you can just email it to me and I'll figure that out at some point. I have no idea where I want to post it. Actually, we probably post it on our festival pages now that I think about it for a second. But if you just send it to me, I'll get somebody to post it, or I'll do it. And I'll email my comments about your films to you, or you can email me and let me know where you want them posted. And I'd be happy to share that. And I just want to thank you again, and thank everybody that is watching or will be watching this later. And I hope you enjoy the films that we picked to share with you, and have a great evening. And thank you, Brielle. Brielle is working quietly behind the scenes. I don't know, she doesn't have her camera on. But thank you so much, Brielle, for helping us. That's Rick's picture there, but that's not actually Brielle. But they were so helpful and so wonderful. Can people?
Thanks so much.
I don't know if they have can
they
like it on Prime?
No, they don't have that, but they can review it on Prime.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
we'll
like
have
an
to all look at
Amazon
how to-
product.
Delita, do you want to tell us where folks can find your film, and would you like for people to like post their positive comments for you?
Yeah.
And where would you want them to share it?
Currently, it's on YouTube. I can post a link in the Zoom chat. But it's just called Fenjon, short film by Delita Rashad.
Okay.
I'll post it.
So I will also post that information with the credits later. And if you guys provided me with your website, I'll include that with your credits also. And thank you, Delita. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess that's about it. So thank you, everyone. Brielle, do you want to hop on and say goodbye? No? Yes?
Yep.
Maybe? Yay!
Yep.
There you are.
Yeah, it was great listening to all the films. I really enjoyed them all, especially the one about the school shooting and stuff, because I'm 22, but that wasn't really a thing 4 years ago when I was in high school. We didn't really have to go through any of that. Now the stuff that kids have to go through is insane.
Yeah, it really is. I thought it was really, it was so moving. I mean, it was just so incredibly heartbreaking. Brielle, what did you think of this? Did you enjoy your experience doing this?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much. And I guess, Brielle, you can end the live. And